So you've heard about Bitcoin and it works with blockchain, but do you know about Ethereum? And have you considered decentralization? How about DAOs in your data, DeFi, open source software, crypto Twitter, E2.0, Mt. Gox stacks, sidechain, state channels, consensus mechanisms? Welcome to Square One, a place to deepen your crypto knowledge.
Awesome. Hey everybody, thanks for joining another episode of Square One. I'm here with Santi, who is currently in Argentina. I've been a fan of Santi and his work for quite a while, and we're gonna get into exactly what he's doing on this call today. But maybe first, Santi, would you mind just giving a bit of background for our listeners of where you're coming from and what brought you, to lead Democracy Earth today?
So a slight correction, I'm Argentine, but I live in Spain now, so I'm in Madrid. I've been researching for almost a decade now digital democracy for the information age, and what we have been doing throughout different projects all of these years is to implement different pilots, different models of democracy that seem to make sense to us. When we mean researching democracy for the information age is, what are the right technologies, what's the proper game theory, how should citizenship or identity be handled. And 10 years ago, almost, I began a political party in Buenos Aires called Partido de la Red, and that party ran for elections in 2013. We got 22,000 votes. That led to developing open source software for democracy as an initial first step. And then eventually we got a grant from Y Combinator in 2015 that brought me to the United States. And there, in California, I started the Democracy Earth Foundation, which has been implementing and researching digital democracy for 6 years now. We have done pilots in many places around the world: Colombia, Hong Kong, Tunisia, Argentina, of course, Mexico, United States. We've been working with all kinds of organizations, political parties, non-profits, government at the local level, at the federal level, distributed networks. And we tried every brand of democracy you can imagine: direct democracy, participatory budgeting, liquid democracy, quadratic voting. So that led us to get some clear notions of what works and what doesn't. And today we're pretty much focused on a project called Proof of Humanity, which is a protocol for generating identities for human beings using smart contracts and crypto economic incentives, so we don't have a central authority handling the identities. And it's a really interesting project because we are able to deploy on top of it democratic systems or democratic DAOs on top of Ethereum. And we actually roll out a universal basic income token, which right now it's as a whole is a $30 million network, and it's been running for 25 days, and it's really interesting to see that evolve alongside with Proof of Humanity.
That's amazing. I mean, there's plenty of places to kind of dive in here, but on that last point, so there's a $30 million UBI network that has formed over the past 25 days. What does that mean? Can we dig into that specifically?
So the dynamic of the token that we generated called UBI gets automatically streamed to every verified human on Proof of Humanity, second by second. It's a fixed quantity per second that gets streamed to verified humans. So if you want to get access to this universal basic income scheme, you must go through Proof of Humanity. This is a system where you generate a proof of yourself using video and an Ethereum wallet where you need to do the signature. And if no one complains about your identity, meaning that we don't allow robots or duplicate identities, if no one challenges your identity, then you get verified as a human. So we have this network of participants that can challenge other identities. And once challenged, you have to go to a conflict resolution system called Kleros that will try to arbitrage between your challenger and yourself as an identity, as an identity generation individual. So the Proof of Humanity registry right now has 1,300 humans or candidate humans. I think I haven't checked this properly, but probably 300, 400 have been verified already. And you have this, to be verified, you need another previously verified human to vouch for you. So this vouching mechanism, it's not like a like. It's, vouches, I can vouch for many people, but my vouches will be processed sequentially, one after the other. If one of my vouchees gets challenged, my remaining vouches will get stuck until that vouchee gets sorted out. So this prevents a spam bot network from taking over the registry. It's very resistant to that. Even myself, as one of the co-founders of the project, I have been decentralized from influencing the protocol because one of my vouchees got challenged, and I have like 20 or 30 pending vouchers to be processed. So this created a lot of incentives from participants in the network to do crowd vouching groups on Telegram, to organize and to coordinate efforts in order to get a voucher that would get them verified as a human being. So all of these dynamics have been completely emergent out of cryptoeconomic incentives put in place by the Proof of Humanity protocol. To generate an identity, you have to put a deposit. If you are verified, you get your deposit back. So there are all these costs in the system that also tries to prevent, again, an attack from a spam bot network or the ability to create duplicate identities. It's been incredible to watch this. I'm hearing from friends and colleagues that they are putting their parents on this system because it's or some people are putting their children in it. It's really fascinating to see what's going on. And so to every verified human we mint, once you get verified, you get access to the UBI token. The UBI token is 1 token per hour. That's the initial issuance rate. The token, when we put it into a market, is an ERC20, so it has, it can be traded freely. We do not control the price. We let the market do that. And during the first day, we listed it on Uniswap, which is a decentralized exchange, and we listed it at $1.25. And within 24 hours, it went up to $170.
Wow.
De facto valuing the network at in the first day at over $1 billion, which was pretty surreal. That said, the liquidity level we had was around $200,000. So it's not like we had $1 billion. But the market value, on day 0 went that high very fast. On day 2, it went down very fast. Went all the way down back to below our initial price of $1.25. It went down to 30 cents, 40 cents. Now here's the thing. At 1 UBI per hour, 30, 40 cents, it meant a universal basic income of $300, $400 a month, which is a lot in many countries. So at its worst moment, the token was still able to deliver a meaningful universal basic income. Right now, the token bounced back to $3, $4. It went up to 6, and now it's at 3, 4. And the liquidity levels in these 25 days grew from 0 to it reached a milestone that was important for me before launching. That was $100,000. It reached that goal in the first few hours, and now it's over $1 million in liquidity, backing the token, using nothing but decentralized protocols, leveraging tools like Uniswap and ERC20 tokens and standard code on Ethereum. And it's been a very interesting experience because at 1,300 humans working on cyberspace, being a tool that can be deployed anywhere there's an internet connection, what I like about this technology, Proof of Humanity and the UBI token, is that it's a level playing field technology. A kid in Bangalore will get the same amount of UBI than a kid in Oslo or in Connecticut. It's a level playing field technology. It doesn't recognize frontiers, and it's a crypto economic experiment in a large extent, but it's really interesting to see that there's very strong demand so far for a universal basic income solution on the blockchain. And there has been a bunch of experiments launched. We're quite excited about the results we're getting in our first month being live on the mainnet.
That's amazing. I mean, I think that, you know, universal basic income has definitely been something that's been like thought of quite often, and there are a few other projects I'm aware of that sort of have launched, but I'm particularly bullish on what you guys are doing, and think that, I mean, if anyone has thought about this in the, like, you know, in the world, I imagine you're one of the people that has thought about this the most, if that's fair, you know. I guess to like go down this a little further. So how many people are currently on verified humans?
So I don't have the number of verified ones, but I can look for you. It's probably around 300, 400 right now. I need to check those numbers properly, but the total number of applicants so far, or, you know, right now we have 1,363 profiles generated in the network. That for blockchain terms is a huge number, because actually each profile is the setup of a node in the protocol. So we can compare it with other protocols, over 1,000 nodes. The interesting thing is that if we are able to effectively reach potentially any human, there are some costs, you know, gas and stuff like that. But as Ethereum scales, if we can reach every human, the network, it can be a very decentralized network in on itself, because each node is effectively a single human being. And the challenge of the incentives of how proof of humanity work is to make sure it remains that way, and that there's no focal point of centralization within the authorities granting the rights that are given by this technology.
That makes sense. This also, the way that identity is verified sounds a little bit familiar to me as Bright ID. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say, you know, there's a paper we published last year called Who Watches the Watchmen? It's a review of 7 different approaches to proof of personhood. That's the generic name we used, where we researched or we reviewed Bright ID, which uses a technique of social graphs, signaling, you know, if you belong to a group that at the same time has influential people that belong to other influential groups, some kind of calculation like that. I'm probably misrepresenting the exactly how it works, but that's one of the approaches, which is kind of like encompassed in the web of trust approach. And with the web of trust approach is the same approach being used by proof of humanity in a certain extent. You have people vouching for other people, not necessarily a game of reputation, but you do have a game of arbitration focused on detecting duplicates and deepfakes in the network, civils and deepfakes. So Bright ID is one of them. Another approach is IDINA. IDINA uses Turing tests, synchronous Turing tests that are hard for machine to solve but easy for humans, and these have to be solved in commit and reveal parties. That's an interesting project. It has around 7,000 nodes right now. Very strong on the privacy keeping aspect of it. We are somewhat between these two. We use video. People have to generate a video of themselves, and that video has to be analyzed by other members of the network, and they have an incentive to challenge videos that are wrong or that are duplicates or that do not follow the rules. And the video element is kind of like working on the Turing resistant aspect of the network. So we use human collective intelligence to detect deepfakes or duplicates. And the web of trust element is also present on this, on the vouching mechanic, which was really surprising to see the coordination around it. That was one of the most interesting highlights unexpected, to be honest, when we launched the project, that it would be so strong, that there would be a black market of people selling vouchers for money, and that's kind of like the clientelism that we want to make sure blockchain brings transparency, at least, and we can point at it. And it's happening. Like, we've been able to look at this phenomena. So it's a very exciting experiment. It's based on the work of a lot of people. Democracy Earth has an original paper from 2017 that explored this idea. It called it back then proof of identity. It had a token minted for every verified identity. And now it's real. Like, a lot of the things that we wrote in that paper, thanks to the maturity of the DeFi ecosystem, the Ethereum protocol, technologies like Kleros, and the commitment of the team of Democracy Earth and Kleros, and now a growing community behind Proof of Humanity, it is very promising. It has been one of the most interesting launches in my career, if not the most interesting one. And I'm in awe. Like, we have this token out there, and it works. It's being used in different ways. It's being traded, and it's being able to grow in value. If we can build a more social-facing blockchain ecosystem, not just the capitalist, financial profit-driven gain, which is obviously incredible to see. But if we can also use the incredible coordination capacities that the internet has to troll a hedge fund in Wall Street, or to suddenly make Dogecoin worth $7.5 billion, why don't we use that energy to make UBI worth that, and we can make a network that can reach everyone on the planet and get the machines to work for us, right? Not us working for the machine. I think that's another big argument around UBI. We've seen in the last decade the trauma that automatization brought to the working class. Like Uber around the world, coming into every city, they had to face the opposition of taxi drivers, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Every job is threatened that way in the coming decades. So are we gonna be just a cog in the machine driving the car, or will the self-driving cars get to pay for our time, and then we can use those basic needs covered, can free us to pursue more our passions, or more creative work, and not just coercive work, which is the vast majority of work being done today. The end of work is good news, but it will be good news if it pays the bills.
That's amazing. I love how optimistic your perspective is, because so many people love to sort of speculate on the dystopic reality of machines taking over the job markets and things like that. Like you mentioned, like taxi drivers, etc. But if we were able to, this ties back to one of my first episodes with Andy Tudhope. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a really great thinker within the crypto Ethereum space also. And he mentioned this idea of a society that supports, like today our society is in the paradigm of like merit reward system that you must contribute work in order to be rewarded security and life and your needs. But what you're describing is sort of that shift in paradigm where society could grant you by default your needs in order to create more positive benefit for and a more just society for or open up creativity and bandwidth for people to contribute to a more just society, right? It's like kind of flipping the order of operations there, which I think is really idyllic and quite exciting if it were to be implemented properly. So I guess that would be kind of the ultimate result, or the hopeful end state for the UBI project specifically?
It's everything we're doing is highly experimental. We don't know, like, if you ask me before launching the token that this would be happening, I wouldn't believe you. So I'm really, I don't know what to expect moving forward. But so far, it's been really interesting. And it's a consequence. To me, the most surprising element is that there's more people than I thought out there willing to learn and being, willing to be onboarded to stuff like Ethereum for the first time. Not just getting onboarded to the exchange and buy the token and see what happens with the price. That was the last bubble. On this bubble, now I see a lot of people like, all right, let me get MetaMask. Let's pay for the gas of this transaction. What the hell is gas? Like, people really learning how to use the blockchain and not just looking at the chart and trading against that chart. And to that's a very optimistic note about the fact that the internet can really change now. If technology like Ethereum or whatever comes next, we have to be open-minded with tech, because innovation can happen anywhere. But certainly Ethereum is leading regarding smart contracts, and we have this composability element where we can combine the strengths of different services out there in so many interesting ways that why not we can try crypto economic experiments like UBI. We'll see what happens moving forward. Right now, we reach an incredible milestone, having over $1 million backing the economic weight of the token. It shows me that there's real demand for something like this, and we have a responsibility and challenge, all of that involved with the project, to keep on shipping and delivering. Now after we launch, we have suddenly a community with thousands of people, 1,000 people on the Telegram channel, 1,000 more on the Spanish Telegram channel, and now it's, I'm being bombarded by messages all over the place, but at the same time, from each place you find someone who is hacking something new. Some guy built a graph to visualize all of the vouchers. Another guy built a tool that looks at the images and finds similar faces and tries to suggest that this might be duplicate identities, and it's doing a bot for that. Another one is, the conflicts that the system had, they were very debated on Twitter. So the fact that we have all of these conversations happening right now means that there's an active community, and it's very promising. Like, it's been fascinating to be very close to this phenomena these past weeks.
That's amazing. I think, and that's something I think that's often overlooked with technology, is that really, so for instance, for Ethereum as an example, Ethereum may not be the most technologically advanced decentralized protocol from the code or efficiency level, right? But it has created a catalyst for this community that is pretty unstoppable, to be completely honest, and really nothing else compares to the community that's around Ethereum. Which, I guess I'm curious, like, where do you think the community for the Proof of Humanity project came from, and what was, how do you curate and catalyze that kind of effect on a project? I think that's something that is, in a lot of ways, the secret behind actually creating successful projects. It's almost less about the technology and it's more about the human coordination.
Well, when Ethereum and Democracy Earth joined forces to research Proof of Humanity, the first step was to do a Telegram group. We brought in researchers that were looking into this problem from different communities, Radical Exchange, or there's a bunch of environments that had academics, hackers, and activists looking into digital democracy, identity, decentralized identity. I knew that Klero's team very well. They know me very well for many years. We met at DevCon in Prague with Fede, one of the co-founders of Ethereum. He's Argentine like me, and we've been friends for over 10 years. So it was a natural fit in terms of the culture. We had the two projects and everyone involved researching this stuff. Then the Bright ID guys are also that were on the original Proof of Humanity group. The IDINA guys, like everyone exchanging and sharing notes. A very strong spirit of cooperation, even to this day, which is something pretty amazing about the open source culture. How it teaches you and trains you not to be, not to claim ownership over any idea, just to share as much as you can to contribute to the conversation in an open and public way. And it's just incredible karma, because you'll suddenly discover someone's, maybe building on top of something you built in a much better way, and then it self reinforces the willingness to keep on building in public and openly, and these type of projects like Proof of Humanity can only be made that way, in an open way, using decentralized protocols. Today it's Ethereum. Ethereum is where the smart contract activity and the liquidity and has this pain point of gas cost and proof of work and whatever, but eventually, software remains, hardware changes. We are still using the same operating systems from the 80s, technically speaking, the same brand of Unix. Some people, some people are still using Windows, I guess, but that began in the 80s. Good software takes 10 years to build. And that's the interesting thing about these networks. Bitcoin has been alive and kicking for 10 years, and probably, we were building all these layers. We'll see where it goes from here, but it's really, I think that it's really a consequence of the digital revolution of the last 30 years. Since I don't know where you can draw the line. Was it the personal computer? Was it the internet? Was it the web? Was it where's the line? Was it Linux? It's a combination of all of those forces, all of that culture. Was it Bitcoin? Was it Satoshi? Was it Vitalik? Everything is coming together in cyberspace in an openly cooperative way, which is the real free market. That free spirit of permissionless cooperation, the permissionless element where I can grab your code. Building smart contracts is pretty much copy pasting code as much as you can, because it's very risky to write your own code in a smart contract. Actually, for the code of the UBI token, my biggest source of inspiration was code that I found on the Aave repository, which they had a token which they never, to my knowledge, they haven't deployed it yet to the mainnet, but they had a streaming token, and I just looked at that streaming code and I was like, okay, let's implement that on the UBI token so we make it streamable. We thought it would be really interesting, it would save a lot of people gas, and the token, once you're verified as a human, it just gets streamed to your wallet and it updates with every new block. It just drips you. And we took that code from Aave and we polished it a little bit, and then we put it on mainnet before they did. And it's the first streamable token out there. There are some streaming services that you can wrap tokens with it, and you can use those services that are wrappers over, but this is a token that natively streams itself through Proof of Humanity, which is really, that's why we use like a drip emoji. It gets dripped, 0.00028 UBI per second, and it's incredible. Like that's what open source can do. It speed ups your capacity as a technologist and as a creator. I don't believe that a private corporation with private data looking for the best talent can reach that level of quality. I don't believe that. I believe that, ultimately openness, really wins the race long term. I do believe that, but Maybe
That's amazing.
I'm a bit of an idealist.
I mean, I think that's why this space is so fun and to build in, is because many are idealists, and it's kind of founded by idealists, despite there also being this like greedy underbelly of the ecosystem as well, of course. But that's also it's like it's like two sides of human nature in a lot of ways, and I love what you're saying about the nature of open source. I think this is a reoccurring theme within all of the conversations that I've had with people throughout the ecosystem, is the spirit of cooperation and knowledge sharing. Ultimately, the goal or the end state, the people who are building within this ecosystem are taking the bet that will compound faster than closed sourced systems and information systems, and so ultimately we should be able to develop technology that have stronger incentive structures in the long run, right? Like after more years, and it's really interesting too. Like the history of the internet is so young, right? Like it's not even been a human lifetime since the internet began, right? It's been like 50 years. And there's so much continuing to develop, and also a lot of history to capture, because there hasn't been a technology like this, ever. The connectivity today is still something that humans are wrapping our minds around as a society. And the possibilities and outcomes are extremely unclear. It's like another grand experiment, which is a big part of the thing that is like enthralling and really invigorating about building within this ecosystem.
In terms of civilization, it's the internet has been around for very few decades. Like it started in the 1960s as a research project from. This is an important aspect about it. The internet is American in the West, at least, because it was developed by DARPA, which is the defense research branch of the America's army, of the military. And it was built, they needed a decentralized protocol back then because of the fear of a nuclear attack or a chirurgical attack against a strategic target. So in order to make the target irrelevant, you decentralize the information with a network that keeps the information distributed, and no single place becomes relevant for the Soviets to destroy. So it was born out of paranoia that led to Americans doing the cool thing, which was decentralizing stuff. And eventually, with TCP/IP in 1980, you had this protocol of doing IP addresses and, building packets of information and shuffling that, decentralizing the protocol even more. And then the World Wide Web with Berners-Lee and the browser, Mosaic and HTML and HTTP, which were the winning protocols back in the mid-90s. There were several protocols you could use with the internet. It was Usenet, Gopher, SMTP, or POP3 for email, which today most people use webmails. But it's really interesting how this thing keeps landing on Earth, to quote David Bowie. And now it's taking institutional shape. It's becoming a monetary phenomenon. It's becoming a political phenomenon. And it's definitely getting more and more economic presence in the macro, at the macro level. Bitcoin is compared to gold now. Ethereum, has the same level of productivity than a country like mine in terms of GDP. It's weird, and this is all happening in cyberspace. So it looks like it's some kind of it has gravitational pull of its own. The information spectrum. There's more and more information in the world, and it's benefiting us in multiple ways, and we need to understand. It can also be weaponized. Cambridge Analytica, Facebook, the tracking of our privacy on a daily basis. That's why addressing identity is so important. The one vulnerability being exploited across all systems is identity. And that's what made Facebook big as the Chinese Communist Party. They only achieved that through different means, through the means of the market, whereas the Chinese did it through the means of realpolitik. But if you look very closely, the blue ones and the red ones, they look very similar. There's not much difference. It's just a matter of propaganda from one side of the wall or the other side of the wall. At the end, I think we all want. We want. I'm an idealist. We are all sharing this world. The conversations around climate, the conversations with COVID. COVID gave us a sense that we are all in this together, like nothing ever before. The fact that every single country, in every single place of the planet, had to go through a lockdown, and you see the nuances and the differences between each country on how they are vaccinating people, or how these jurisdictions work, how these states work, and it's all a big mess. And people want to eject themselves from that. That's my sensation. That this bull run began right at the same time the United States exploded in live TV after that weird election for the first time, with a candidate not recognizing the other side, which has very little precedent in America but has a tremendous amount of precedent elsewhere. This type of political clashes, storming the Congress, it's situation normal, all fucked up for traditional politics, even in America. Coups used to be an export product of America. Now it's happening at home. And I don't mean anyone bad and no harm. We have to be respectful of the institutions we have. There's tremendous history behind them. But we might be able to try new stuff now with Ethereum, with Bitcoin, or with any of the new networks that are out there. Some very exciting projects are being developed, and hopefully, if a new thing comes and it's bigger than Ethereum and Bitcoin altogether, it means that we're going even faster to the future, and it looks very promising to me. That's what keeps me hopeful. At least, I come from Argentina. I come from a poor country, and there are a lot of financial stress with a very bad social situation, and stuff like this could be life-changing to a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree. And, whenever I'm thinking about decentralized governance, I think like the history of governance, even within human society, is continuing to evolve, right? And even like the U.S. as an empire and as a form of governance, the democracy is relatively young within our history of coordination. And now, compared to the internet, is like quite old. And it's hard to iterate on governance because of the bureaucracy structures that are sort of set up, and then the red tape, and then the societal systems that are kind of like ingrained, and people have a short-term memory as far as history goes, so it feels like the rules have always been set, although the rules are continuing to evolve. Whenever I think about the DAO systems that are developing within Ethereum, to me, all of these are new micro experiments within like micro democratic experiments to kind of potentially try and solve for these meta problems of governance that we desperately need to build, because the Constitution of the United States was created to govern 13 colonies, and maybe like I don't know how many people there were in the US back then, but probably not even 1 million people, right?
30,000.
30,000 people. Literally 30,000 people. So we have more than 10x that number now within the United States itself. And we expect our system to kind of continue to function in a similar way. Oh, yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And the thing, I don't know, the thing that's like exciting about proof of humanity in the internet is that things can scale on a whim almost. And if you find the right incentive structure that's elegant and can perform, it's a total game changer. And I really love what you guys are doing with proof of humanity. How did you? I know there's like a lot. There's so many vectors within this kind of environment of like governance, of decentralized governance, right? How did you come upon this experiment as being the one to really focus on?
Well, I think for on a technology like Kleros was really interesting because it's about conflict resolution, and it has been more and more tested during the last years, where it has been used to generate a list of curated tokens for Uniswap, for example, or it was used. So these were the first use cases that it found within the community that was somewhat useful for another decentralized service to rely on, and the maturity of that was allowed for the idea of exploring. Well, Kleros essentially is a technology that helps create any kind of oracle through its conflict resolution mechanism. Technically, build a list of anything, and using it for listing tokens for an exchange was a nice first step for them. But now they're using it to generate a list of humans using video proofs. Could potentially be used for making a list of anything. But it's interesting to see how this technology evolved. It tweaked and improved its crypto economic incentives for those that are challenging, for those that are appealing to what a juror has voted for, or it has everything in place for that. Then on our end, Democracy Earth, for the last at least 3 years, we identified that identity was the one building block that needed to be figured out. Formalizing human identity. That's what I mean by identity, not identity in abstract, like a pointer in a computer, but formalizing human identity was core. Because if I look at all of the pilots that we have done in the past, every single one of them, a very common vector of attack was a civil attack. We were, in my life, I have been hacked by communists twice. First in Buenos Aires, when we did a pilot for the city congress, we had the Workers' Party generate 6,000 fake accounts. And then in 2016, we did a shadow referendum in Hong Kong using Telegram for electing this Hong Kong mayor with the Umbrella Movement. It was a cooperation with them. We had 800,000 participants in Telegram. 600,000 of them came from a Chinese IP. So we can assume we were hacked by the Chinese Communist Party. And 2 times on digital democracy pilots, the communists hijacked the election with fake identities or a civil attack in some way. So to us, that those experiences led to, well, this is the Achilles heel of digital democracy, right? And obviously, any kind of system that aims to be institutional and not just a survey, a silly survey like whatever people put like on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, any system that aims to become an institution that moves real money, real value, has to be built using smart contracts or cryptocurrency or something that really works on that level. So addressing identity and using blockchain-based networks has been, for the last 4 years, I'd say, since our paper, The Social Smart Contract, has been the main priority of Democracy Earth from a research angle. We were able to win a couple of grants that advanced our research significantly. And when we merged efforts with Kleros, it was a match made in heaven, because spiritually we were already very well aligned. We're all friends and colleagues, and we know each other, and we share the same values for sure. And technically, it has proven to be a tremendous collaboration. To me, as a programmer, has been an incredible experience to develop the UBI token and to put something on the mainnet that now it's generating value for this universal basic income experiment.
That's amazing. And that makes a lot of sense. I think, many people will think about democracy and be like, oh, well, you need to be voting on things, right? Is that for your 10-minute or warning for your next call? No worries. Well,
Famous 10-minute notification.
That's right. Like, I get it. But just like a few final thoughts. Like, I think like people think of democracy as being voting, needed. And how many people you've run a variety of very successful experiments within that type of democratic system within parties in Argentina and China, like or in Hong Kong, like you mentioned. I'm imagining that coordinating that was also extremely like its own challenge, and I'm sure had its own lessons. Were you using Ethereum for those experiments as well?
No, actually, on the Hong Kong pilot, we use Bitcoin, and we use Merkle tree technique with Bitcoin. Okay. Storing in a single transaction like 3,000 votes. Nice. Weird technical choice, but we figured, well, what can be done with the Bitcoin blockchain? During the first attempt, it was a traditional client-server open source software, but client-server is a recipe for surveillance. So don't trust a server ever. Don't trust a server ever. That's a good motto for life.
That's a good takeaway.
I'm gonna tweet
that. Please do. That's really great. And that's so interesting. So it makes a lot of sense. You come from having these different experiments that actually were working with political parties, and these were internal. I didn't realize that people were so aware that they wanted to hack the internal process of decision making for these different political parties. That's like to me, that's like actually a successful experiment because it means that it was meaningful for the opposition. And if it's meaningful for the opposition, then it's really meaningful for the party that's actually doing the action, right?
Yeah. We'll see. It's so far it's been amazing to see. At the end of the day, we're talking about lives, human people, human beings, and I think it's important to be aware that all of these incredible technologies should be able to hopefully deliver a better world than the one that we're living in, that brings more opportunity, more prosperity, more tools, more awakening, and more knowledge to everyone. I'm a firm believer on the internet. The internet has changed my life for sure, and the life of my entire generation and every generation after mine. And with the blockchain and with Bitcoin, it's that on steroids. And I am very optimistic about what we can unlock as a community. Someone was sending me a message over social media telling me that he was gonna be onboarding his brother who needs to go to the university, and he cannot afford going to the university. He has to work a 9-to-6 job and stuff like that, and he was gonna use this to see if he could afford studying. If we get one case like that, like last week I talked with a foundation in Argentina. We did a class to teenagers that live in slums, in one of the poorest slums in the country, and all of these kids, they have a smartphone. The digital divide is really a generational thing more than a socioeconomical thing. So you have kids in India, in Mozambique, in Egypt, everywhere, in Australia, in Japan, everywhere. Every new generation is being connected to the internet, and we can use these incredible coordination efforts that we have unleashed with crypto and these networks, not only to troll Wall Street hedge fund, but potentially build a welfare system on top of these technologies that delivers welfare without intermediaries, without clientelism, without the man in the middle attack, which is extremely common, especially in the developing world, all of the money in politics is being hijacked by money in the middle attacks. You'd be scared if I told you what I know about my country, and I've been involved in politics in my country. And there are some serious criminals in the middle of the delivery of aid through the state or through the welfare system in Latin America and everywhere. And if we can beat them with technology, it would be a very interesting battle to win. Let's see what the Degen DeFi traders think of this. I know some of them have a heart. Most of them do, probably. They're young. They should be idealistic. And so far, they seem to be supporting the project. So I'm thankful for the nice start we got. Let's see where we move from here now.
Absolutely. I have chills, honestly, thinking about the student who wouldn't have been able to focus on their education because they had to pay off their work through, to be able to afford that time and energy via UBI. And I also have chills from the reality of the misaligned system that exists today and the potential that, we can overcome this. I agree too. Coordinating the degens will be important because therein lies the liquidity, right? and a lot of power with that. And that's right. Absolutely. And, I also think that, I have faith that, in general, despite the intention of, making that 10x return, there's also a lot of people who are there under the right intention and supporting the technology with integrity. So, well, Santi, I know you have 1,000 Telegram messages to get to and plenty more to do. Thanks so much for taking the time in the middle of this UBI launch. I really appreciate you spending an hour with me here.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk and yeah, looking forward to keep this conversation in the future, and hopefully we'll see where we are
Definitely.
with UBI and Proof of Humanity there. Hopefully it will still be there and it will be even bigger than today.
No, definitely. I'm a big fan of your work, so, keep crushing it, and I'm excited to continue the conversation. There's plenty more to discuss and share. Ciao.
If you want to explore more and deepen your understanding of cryptocurrency concepts and mechanisms available today, please visit our Gitbook or Crypto Encyclopedia. You can find it on our website at square1.tech. Thanks for listening.